or they like us. I don't know why they'd like us.
They definitely won't necessarily like me. They might like you. I'm Tom.
And I'm Andy.
And this is On the Node, a podcast about the ups and downs, the highs and lows, the swings and roundabouts of a cancer diagnosis. But fear not. This is not going to be, we hope, a depressing series of conversations. Instead, it's going to be an uplifting, honest, open, perhaps emotional at times, conversation between two really, really good mates and a series of, we think, quite special guests. So Andy, cannot wait to do this with you, mate. And I think the best place to start is probably to contextualize our friendship slightly. So why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so we're two Brits. We met in London about 11 years ago.
Yeah.
We're both working for the same company. We still work for the same company, but we've since been traveling the world. We're in a very fortunate position. We both live in Hong Kong at the moment, and that's where I got ill in Hong Kong a few years ago. You've since lived in Dubai. I've lived in Vietnam. You're on your second stint in Hong Kong.
Correct.
And I've been here that whole 6-year period. And throughout that time, we've just gotten to know each other better and better. I think probably the COVID years brought us closer together because, in Hong Kong, it was quite a challenging time. We couldn't travel. We had Christmas dinner together for the first time away from our families. It was a great dinner. So absolutely. So we've known each other a good period of time, and over that time I mentioned we work for the same firm. We've never worked together, not directly.
God.
Yeah,
for your sake.
Absolutely.
Can you think of anything worse?
Probably not.
Working with me.
Yeah, I feel like I've just had a lucky escape out of that. But anyway.
Oh my gosh, that'd be hilarious.
So we've never worked together, but
Yet.
we've we run in similar circles, and as our careers have followed each other geographically, we've just become better friends.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned earlier, we were just talking over dinner, and you said that over the past few years we felt closer, like family, actually, especially those COVID years. So
yeah, I mean, if I was going to reflect, right, decades count in life, right? So first decade, 0 to 10, whatever happens. 10 to 20, formative years, particularly the latter part of that decade. I think what's mad is that we've known each other over a third of our lives, right?
Bit mental when you put it like that.
Yeah. So we're both 32, 33 this year. We met when we were 21, fresh out of uni. And I think for me, if I look at that second decade where you meet a lot of mates, you think you're best mates with a lot of people, but realistically you're not. If I was going to profile a lot of those blokes, probably because they thought I was a bit of a cretin and left. But in general, those folks were probably more sporty. I played sport with them and stuff like that. We're totally not like that. We've never played sport together. You like all the wrong sports, frankly. I like all the right sports.
I can't say I agree with that, but we have played sports together once though, Tom. I remember when we first met, you wanted to cool off after a busy morning of kind of like lectures at this sort of work induction, and I found you hitting golf balls out on the lawn, and I went to try and join you, and I think I smacked one into the bush. So yeah, we played sport once for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, to be fair, you're probably the only person on this planet that's worse at golf than me.
Oh, that's
so congrats.
Nice to hear.
No, but in all seriousness, where I was going with that is that on the face of it, if I was going to look at that second decade of my life, I wouldn't have necessarily seen us coming together. But I think the third decade and the fact that we're so aligned as mates and we think quite similarly about the world, politically, I think we're quite, aligned. I've really, really valued that as a mate, and that's why I feel so lucky, frankly, and privileged that you've taken the decision to want to do something like this, particularly with someone like me on your left hand side, so to speak, which I think hopefully is a pretty good segue into how we came to be on these two green seats. I broadly understand me, like I like bit of camera, lights, action, all that stuff. Potentially like the sound of my own voice at times. You're not like that at all. So talk to me about how we got here, and particularly how you got here.
Yeah, I know you just can't wait to stick it on your LinkedIn profile, can you? Podcast co-host.
Hashtag.
Anyway, so as Tom mentioned in our intro, this is a podcast about two mates and one cancer. So for context for our viewers, our listeners, I got diagnosed with cancer in December 2022. We'll go into that in a lot more detail as the series goes on. But I recently, in end of January 2025, relapsed from that cancer. And we were just sort of talking about how to coping mechanisms is probably a good way to describe it. You were asking me, oh, well, have you ever thought about writing it down? You're writing down your experience. And I tried that. I tried that the first time round. I tried it back in 2022. I didn't find it that valuable. I wasn't getting too much out of it.
How when you say you wrote, how long did you write for, and what was it that you're writing in those?
So when I was going through particular, heightened emotions, or if something in particular of importance had happened that day for about a 3-week period, I was sort of writing about it, how I felt, what happened, that kind of thing. And I think that what was my journal has since become my work notebook. So it's I just didn't get much out of it. I was thinking, I'm never going to read this because my handwriting is atrocious, and that I struggle with it. I'm never going to get this published because I was just sort of, what would you put? I'm just sort of vomiting words onto a page. It wasn't that coherent. Um, so yeah, I wasn't getting much out of it. And then you asked me, well, do you like to talk about it? And well, the reality is I do. I find it incredibly therapeutic to talk to friends, family, colleagues. I'm not shy about it, and at all. And so you asked me, well, how about we do a podcast? And I think you were quite taken aback when it only took me about 5 minutes to go, yeah, all right.
I was fully expecting that to probably take a week's worth of convincing, because not to we'll unpack your personality. I'm sure we'll unpack both of our personalities, but you're someone that isn't particularly comfortable being center of attention. I would say you're quite a shy man, actually, to a greater or lesser degree. So to hear you accepting within a minute, more or less, I think your first response was a bit like, "Ugh." But then the next sentence that I spoke, I think you'd already planned about 10 episodes.
Yeah. I think, again, for more context for our viewers, I was laying in a hospital bed at this point, and I'd been there for about a week, and I was due to be there for another 2 weeks. I had already consumed all of the streaming services, and I was pretty bored. So
Hence why you were speaking to me.
So I think, yeah, keeping me entertained. So I think when I then typed into ChatGPT, oh, should two guys write a podcast about lymphoma, and it came back with this description. I was like, I could do that. So I think I just instantly sent it to you with the draft name, draft concept, and then I think it even had like 3 episodes semi-planned out. So yeah, it's taken a few weeks for us to get here. I think that was about a month ago now. But here we are. We're sat here filming. We're gonna have a YouTube channel. We're gonna have.
We're gonna go. Yeah, it's gonna be very, very big. I think we're gonna have tens of millions of people.
Yeah,
potentially watching
for this hyper niche subject.
You say that, but niche is good.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably unpack that subject matter, shouldn't we?
Yeah, at some point. So you mentioned Hodgkin's, right?
Well, I don't know if I have. I mentioned I had cancer, but
There you go.
yeah. So I, again, for our audience, I've got Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And what is it? If you kind of give
So
a
yeah, happily. So Hodgkin's lymphoma is part of the group of cancers that you'd classify as blood cancers, and blood cancers are you've got leukemia and you've got lymphomas. Now, lymphomas are a cancer of the lymphatic system.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a real 101 explanation for this, because one thing I want to clarify is we're not going to be a medical podcast. We're not going to give loads of detail, facts, statistics. We're not going to be giving reviews of medical journals or medical advice.
No Harvard journals being referenced in these podcasts.
No, we're purely here to talk about life experience, and the experiences that we've gone through as friends, my experience and journey as a patient, and going through this. But anyway, taking a step back, so what is lymphoma? So it's a cancer of the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is made up of lymph nodes, which are all around your body. So you've got lymph nodes in your neck, in your armpits, your groin, your ankles, all through your chest and chest cavity and things. And essentially, if you get cold or flu, sometimes that might swell.
I've felt them.
So that's your immune system responding, and essentially it's a cancer of that. So there are two key families of lymphoma. There's Hodgkin's, which is what I have, and there's non-Hodgkin's. And I'll try and give a really rough description of my understanding of the difference between the two. So Hodgkin's lymphoma spreads through what I can only describe as like a chain. So in my case, it started in my neck and then it sort of spread through my chest. When it comes to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, that doesn't behave as predictably as Hodgkin's. So non-Hodgkin's could start in your neck, and then it could be in your groin, and then it could be in your armpit. It could be a bit all over the place. Yeah. So thankfully, due to the nature of the way it spreads, Hodgkin's lymphoma, in my case, is a little bit easier to treat. That's kind of my highest level description, I suppose.
Got it. And I think now we're in late March, right? So Hodgkin's lymphoma, you mentioned it relapsed, right?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in December 2022. At that stage, for people who in our audience who may be going through lymphoma themselves, I was stage 2B for context, and we'll get into
first time, right?
First time, and we'll get into that a little bit later. I've recently relapsed into stage 3, and I'm currently going through treatment for that.
Where are you in the treatment for the second stage?
I am about to go into my 3rd round of chemotherapy.
Got it. And again, I know we're going to unpack that in more details in episodes to come. I guess, so we talked about kind of practically how we got there and obviously where you're at with the diagnosis and stuff like that. And we're not going to get into a huge amount of detail on this first pod, but why do you want to do it?
Good question. So when I went through it the first time, I didn't know anyone who'd been through it. Actually, it later transpired that my granddad had gone through it.
Lymphoma?
Hodgkin's lymphoma, but he's in his 90s. Very different to having Hodgkin's lymphoma when you're 30.
Did you have any other family members that went through it? Didn't you tell me?
Yeah, I again back in 2022, I didn't know this. But just this
thankfully,
just this Christmas, my mum was sent my great aunt's memoir. It's like a 20.
Great aunts as in your mum's great aunts, or your
my mum's
great aunts?
My great aunt. My great aunt.
Okay.
My granddad's sister. Anyway, so it was a 20-page Word document.
Your granddad, sorry. This is the same granddad
who had it recently in his 90s.
Right.
Yeah.
His sister.
His sister's, yeah. his his elder sister.
Come on, mate. How do you not know this? Like, right,
Let me get there.
Gosh.
His elder sister, still alive,
Yeah.
recently wrote a memoir, just a short, like 20-page
Yeah.
document about her life. And one of those pages recounts her younger sister, my granddad's younger sister,
Yeah.
who went through it at the age of 26. And we must be going back to the 1950s. And she actually had Hodgkin's lymphoma as well. At that time, it was called
Yeah.
Hodgkin's disease.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily like grouped into lymphomas, I think. Again, not a medical pod, don't know the complete history of its naming. But anyway, so she went through and sadly died at the age of 26 because they didn't have the benefit of the treatments we have today. So yeah, that's all a fairly recent discovery. But going back to your question, so why do I want to do this? Why do we want to share stories? Well, in 2022, I didn't have anyone I knew who was going through it. I didn't know anyone our age who'd really gone through cancer. Let alone specifics. One thing I have learned over the last few years is that cancers are so different. You know, my experience going through this could be very different from someone going through bowel cancer or anything like that. It's very, very different. But we tend to, like, as a society, we tend to kind of just clump them together. But they are very
the big C.
Yeah. So, you know, really, I want to just be here to kind of tell stories, share my experience, share the experience of those around me, and how they've sort of reacted and responded, and sort of been on this journey with me. There's people who've helped me on this journey, whether it's my partner and primary carer, whether it's people who helped me rehabilitate when I sort of came through it on the other side. And I'd love to invite them on as special guests and things to kind of hear their perspectives. And because when you do find content, and I'm sure throughout this series we'll reference other people's content at times, it can be incredibly relatable, and it can be really helpful for someone going through that experience and that journey. So for me, actually, this person was diagnosed shortly after me, about 2 or 3 months after I had it in 2022. But there's a very popular content creator, YouTuber called Hank Green. He's a bit older than us, but he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma just a few months after me, and he created some incredible content about cancer survival statistics, and he'd talk about his first treatment, and he'd talk about Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I want to be able to add to that body of very relatable content that people who, whether they are a carer, whether they're a patient, or whether they're just genuinely interested in finding out about it, or they like us. I don't know why they'd like us.
They definitely won't necessarily like me. They might like you.
But you know, hopefully we can help some people out. Some people might just be interested, and keep our audience engaged. And I just hope to kind of give back, really.
100%. And you know what? You just said something, right? And I know not to give too much away, but we're going to unpack this. But it's the first time I've ever heard you refer to your partner and primary carer. And I think that's pretty significant, particularly as we go through and we get some of these special guests on. I think when you're referring to someone as a primary carer, there's a level of responsibility there that I'm sure we'll unpack together with the special guest who is your beautiful and lovely partner. So what's next?
Yeah, so I think in our next episode, it makes sense to start from the beginning. So what was that experience like in November, December 2022? Getting diagnosed, navigating healthcare systems, and as we mentioned earlier, we're both living in Hong Kong. I was living in Hong Kong in 2022. So what was it like navigating that? Reaching a diagnosis, really. So that's where we'll get started.
Episode 2, diagnosis.
Absolutely.
I'm Tom.
This is Andy.
And that was On the Node. Until next time.